Good evening, everybody. Hi, how are you all? My name's Graham, for those of you who perhaps haven't seen me on here before, and I'm here for my weekly broadcast about my own personal experiences with anxiety, and in particular at the moment, as is part of my little kind of series I'm doing about social anxiety that I've suffered with, not social anxiety as a whole subject. I won't be sort of talking about everything, the sort of textbooks and the kind of handout sheets and all that kind of talk about. I'm just going to tell you how it's been for me, because as we've all kind of explained before, I guess, none of us are kind of trained therapists or anything like that, but we do have what we do have is kind of lived experiences in different areas, and in my case, most certainly, one of the things that that I've really been aware of and struggled with pretty much all of my life is difficulties in kind of social interactions and that sort of things caused me a lot of anxiety in the past. So I'm just going to sort of tell you a little bit about myself and the sort of stuff that I've been through, in the hope that maybe one or two of you might just listen to this and think, well, hang on a minute, yeah, I've been through that particular thing, which I know that from my own point of view, when I've struggling with kind of what some people might perceive as shyness or whatever, I think it's perhaps quite a lot more significant than just a bit of shyness, but that's another story. But I certainly, for like so much of my life, I know that I felt that I was completely alone, and not just that, but I felt like I was like the real ultimate version of the odd one out. So it wasn't even so that I didn't think that people would understand so much. I didn't think for a second anybody else would be going through, because I just thought I was so weird, a lot of the time, and an exception to most rules. And so I know that if say 10 or 20 years ago I heard someone talking about reeling off a load of things that they were going through, in terms of a sort of social phobia thing, I think if I'd have heard sort of just one example mentioned by somebody else of one of the things that I was going through, I think that I would have thought, wow, it's not just me, even if it was just like that one small point or example, so that's kind of, so yeah, I'm here to kind of just talk generally really and let you know, because it's really, really good for me to do that, but I do hope that one or two of you might even benefit from it as well. I mean, that would be great. I'm not here to give any answers or solutions, I'm not trained to do that. We're here to support each other, aren't we, in this community, and so that's the plan, really, just to kind of just to talk it out really, and and hopefully find that some of you might know a bit about what I've been through, and hopefully you'll understand that you're not alone either. Okay, so anyway, backtracking a little bit, some of you may have seen in previous weeks I was doing these broadcasts live, which is really, really enjoyable, because it means that we can have sort of live interaction going on, and I can sort of chat to you guys in real time. But at the moment, I'm going to be doing these in a slightly different format. I'm pre-recording this now, and broadcasting it on a Friday night, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the time being for the next few weeks. See how that goes. But please do put your comments down and everything, because they will be read, and they will be just as they would be if it was a proper live. And I'll be on hand most weeks whilst this is playing live, so I'll be able to respond to the comments probably a bit easier than I can do when I'm actually speaking live, if that makes any sense. So please let me know how you're doing as you're watching this. That would be something I'd really appreciate, because I want this to be as much sort of like a live experience as it can be, and of course we've also got our brilliant moderators on hand, who will also be keeping an eye on all the sort of comments and so on that appear during this. And also, sorry, just before I forget as well, I will be still doing proper lives, but at the moment it's a bit tricky to be sort of scheduling them in for myself, with an awful lot going on at the moment, so they're going to be a little bit kind of hit or miss as and when, so I'll give you as much notice as I can, but I they'll be kind of a bit ad hoc, I think is the phrase in it, and because I love doing those, but they'll be kind of more general check-ins, a bit like our other Graham does on a Tuesday, which I know a load of you regularly tune in for him, because I know how I've seen a few of them myself, and I know how really kind of supportive and encouraging they are, and I know how popular they are with you guys as well. So I hoping to do a few of those as well. In the meantime, I'm also going to be I'm setting up a few interviews that I'll be doing with several people. I was hoping to have started those by now, but it's been a bit of a tricky start to the year for several reasons. Just on a practical level, really, as much as anything. So I've not managed to get those fully organised as yet, but I will do, and they'll all be and they'll kind of probably be pre-recorded. I'm not sure if they'll be in the format of videos like this, or if there'll be podcasts. I'm not sure, but I think they're going to be really, really interesting. So I'll keep you all updated on that as well. So anyway, that's pretty much the plan. So I'm going to have a quick sip of my coffee. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm going to just for today, just a quick recap really on for those of you who haven't watched my lives in this particular sort of series. I don't know, quite a lot of you have, and it's been wonderful. Some of the responses I've had whilst I've been doing the previous ones have been so heartwarming, and given me a huge sense of kind of support and encouragement, and really kind of it's just been a really, really enjoyable experience. So thanks to everyone. There's quite a few names that crop up now when I do my lives that it's always a real pleasure to sort of see again, and also new names and faces as well. But for those who haven't, and for those who have as well, I suppose, a quick recap. As I say, I'm Graham. I've been with Making Mental Health Positive for a number of years now, and I've started talking recently about I've anxiety, difficulties, sort of that kind of general sort of underlying uncertainty, fear, I suppose, but certainly in my case, probably the most overriding sense I've experienced over the years in my lifetime has been a fear of kind of how people perceive me, what people think of me. Not that I wanted to be really popular or really well liked or anything like that, but I really have always felt like a bit of an odd one out, as I say, and that I'm perhaps not quite as valid a person as everybody else, and nobody's made me feel that way. Only myself, that I do know for a fact. So it's sort of something that comes down very much to I suppose my own view of myself, and how could anyone else possibly sort of really think that I'm as, sorry to use this word, but as normal as they are, perhaps. I don't know. But where it's kind of really kind of been in force, shall we say, is when dealing with other people, and what I spoke about the first week that I did this was the kind of physical symptoms, shall we say, of a social anxiety situation, which can happen to me anywhere in any situation. But probably the thing I spoke about most was when I'm at work, and this goes back to when I first started working. Back in my sort of late teens, I suppose. I'm now well into my 40s, so we're going back quite a long way here. And one particular job which I kept for years, but in a huge kind of open plan office environment, how I spoke in quite a lot of detail about how difficult every single day was for me in that office, and not because of the people that were there, because they were absolutely wonderful, and I've still, all these years on, got many great friends from those days. And the reason I stuck that job out for as long as I did was because of the people there. But what I found was that I would, on a pretty much, well, no, absolutely on a daily basis. Sorry, the fear I would feel when interacting with others in this office, and that would be if somebody came over to our sort of group of desks or something, I'd get incredibly nervous, even if it didn't have to be like a manager or a client or anything like that. It could be anyone. If I felt that I was going to say the wrong thing, and also it didn't even matter if I didn't know, if they were coming over to ask a question about work, I wasn't particularly nervous about if I didn't know the answer or anything. It wasn't an anxiety from that. It was just purely about how I came across as a person, and so that would result in me kind of having panic attacks and lots of blushing, lots of shaking and sweating, and voice going really sort of high pitched and stuff like that. But these weren't like isolated experiences. These were daily, and that would make me feel kind of obviously incredibly embarrassed, frightened, but also make me feel, say somebody had come over to ask me a question, and for no reason that I can explain whatsoever, I'd get really frightened to talk to this person, start going bright red and all that, to a point where it was so obviously noticeable to others, I couldn't, no way I could concentrate then on the work side of it, because my mind was racing so much. How do I get out of this situation? How do I just run away, but also how do I make that other person feel better, because they must be feeling incredibly awkward, and the nicer these people were, and they would never say to me, "Oh, are you okay, mate?" Because they probably didn't want to draw attention to the fact that I was obviously in distress, but then that made me feel really guilty, thinking, oh God, they've just come over, they've got all their work to get on with, and oh my God, they're never going to want to come over again, and all that sort of, and it was non-stop. So of course what it meant was, like, every single day at work, week after year after year, I would spend my entire time sat at my desk, not able to concentrate on my work, just looking around this massive office and thinking, right, that person over there, are they going to be coming over here? Oh, what if that one got, oh no, I think that one's, oh no, it looks like she's going to the photocopier. Oh no, he's going to, oh no, he's on the phone, that's okay. Right, oh no, they're coming over. Now, maybe now it's a time to pretend to go to the toilet or make a cup of tea or something like that, you know. So it's just constant, it's like over sort of vigilance, you know, of just trying to keep on top of it. And I remember I gave an example when I was first talking about this stuff a few weeks ago on here, that and this is just an example, it was just constant, you know, there was always something. But you know, one example is let's say I'd sort of come out the lift on the floor where my particular office was, and I'd be walking down, and you know that situation, I'm sure we've all been in, where you kind of get to the door first and you open it, and then you can hear some footsteps behind you. You sort of look around and you can see someone's coming, and then you sort of hold the door. You don't just want to walk through and let the door shut behind you. But whereas I assume most people would just think about it for a split second and decide whether or not to do it and then just get on with their day, for me, I would kind of be there and I'd be half closing it, half opening it, and then the person's getting nearer but they're still not that near, so I'm thinking, oh my god, what if I'm now making them feel awkward and making them rush to the door, you know, and all they want to do is take their time. Or what if I can't shut the door now because they've already seen it, and so before I know it, I haven't even walked into the office at this point, and I'm in absolute, you know, no man's land. But then what of course would happen with that is I'd start going bright red. By the time this person, and again, it wouldn't matter if it was a manager or a woman or a guy, there was no specific, it was just whoever it was, they would have seen me kind of getting really, really awkward, and in my mind probably thought, what the hell is wrong with him? It's just a door, and look at the state of him. So then I could say quite honestly, for it could be 6 months or a year or 2 years after that event, whenever I'd see that person in the office, so every day that would be, whoever that person was, whenever I saw that person, I would be bright red. Every time. And so it just kind of, it just, everything became so much bigger than it ever needed to be. But that's just how it always was, you know. And there's a million other examples, but you know, that's kind of, and this would happen. I mean, I'd say this would happen at work all the time, but it would also happen in my social life as well, because as I have said, again, mentioned quite a lot of times whilst doing these, you know, I also, it's not all kind of doom and gloom, because I am really, really lucky in that, despite my kind of, always a bit of fear of the world, you know, and fear of how people kind of view me or whatever, but I've also, having said that, also been really lucky in that I've had some brilliant friends all my life, and I've also had a really, really good social life. You know, I've managed to do so many things that I've wanted to do. So I've never kind of locked myself away. None of this stuff's ever stopped me doing what I've wanted to do, but it has made it really, really difficult most of the time, I suppose. And I should also say that now things are a lot better than they used to be. I still have, you know, still a bit nervous, but I've learned to kind of put some of these things, I guess, into a better perspective now. So that's, you know, that's really, really, really positive. And as I say, you know, I count myself extremely fortunate, you know, the way, you know, ironically, the way my social kind of world has been, you know, has been fantastic as well. You know, it's just been difficult to achieve it, I suppose. But I've forgotten what the next thing I was going to say was. I do this a lot, by the way, if anyone hasn't seen me before. I don't tend to plan things when I do these talks, because I'm not. I don't know why I should do really, but I'm not one for writing notes, and I always think, nah, it'll be fine. I'll just start talking, and then I sort of end up waffling away and lose track a little bit, So apologies if I'm not making a lot of sense, but I hope you sort of get the idea of what I'm saying. So even like in social situations, particularly with this thing, I keep going back to this idea of like blushing, going bright red, and sort of looking guilty for something that isn't there. I mean, we all can look a bit shifty sometimes, can't be, in genuinely embarrassing situations or whatever. But so these are all things that were just going in my head. So I think because I had no control over it, I think my biggest fear was that normally when somebody looks embarrassed or is embarrassed, starts going red and all that, there's normally a reason for it. So people would probably think, oh, I wonder why that person's embarrassed. I think it's human nature to a point, but because for me it would just happen at just times that had no relevance, there was also that extra layer in my thoughts of like, well, okay, so why? They're going to be wondering why now. These people that are witnessing this, they're bound to. It's human nature. They're bound to be thinking, well, what's he done? What's he looking shifty? And that just kind of makes it worse. It's quite hard to sort of think, oh, well, they're bound to just know that I've just got this weird system in my head that makes me go red when I'm not embarrassed, whatever. Anyway, so there's always that. So then I'm sort of double guessing what I think they're double guessing, and it's just endless, But and that would happen like socially as well. So like for example, I think I may have used this example as well when I was chatting in the past, where like, let's say one thing that used to happen quite a bit, say I was with a group of mates or something, and we maybe sat in a pub or wherever, whenever, and if one of them said, just in general conversation, if someone said, oh, has anybody seen my phone? I lost it here last night, or I lost my wallet. Has anyone? I would immediately, because there's a situation that could result in somebody looking shift. It's something that's kind of open to somebody perhaps being guilty or responsible or something. My brain would automatically go into panic. What if they think it's me? What if they think it's me? But then it wouldn't just be my mind in it. It would be externally as well. So I then start going bright red and shaking, and then so it's like my brain's trying to like bully me really to make me look guilty for things that I hadn't done, and that was really, really, really hard. So that would kind of affect some of the people that I'd maybe want to go and spend time with. I was thinking, what if I need to make sure I'm only with people that really do sort of know me very well. But then of course then that's sad, because it means you can't really expand your kind of social group and stuff. And so that's something like, yeah, definitely this kind of blushing thing is like, it's just almost that undeniable look of kind of being in distress or something like that. Sorry, I keep doing this, keep getting these things flashing up on my phone. That's why I have to keep shifting them. Sorry. So that's something, and that was always there. And I think it probably is still to a point now, but thankfully, after all these years, it's finally kind of started to get a bit better now. And I do still go red, but thankfully it's normally now in appropriate times, if I do trip over, or because I'm also really clumsy, by the way, as well. I'm terrible for dropping things and stuff like that, and that's not to do with, well, it probably is partly to do with anxiety, but that's just me anyway. I'm just like that. So when I do that now, if there's people around, I can feel myself go a bit red, but then I almost embrace that, because I think, I like that, because it's a good reason to go red, and it's not my brain bullying me. So I can more than happily live with that. Something else I spoke about as well was this isn't so much to do with blushing actually, or shaking, or having those kind of things, but it was always had a fear of speaking on the phone, which I know is quite a common um, thing. I know a lot of people, I know certainly I'm not alone in that. Where I found that was perhaps different to most people that I read about or heard about who had a fear of speaking on the phone, is that my when I get the most nervous about making a phone call or taking a phone call, it's if it's somebody I know quite well on the other end. If a family member or a friend, colleague, someone like that's on the phone, if I see their name flash up on the phone, then I get really nervous, my heart starts racing. Whereas if I've got a phone up, like a company or something, or or whatever, the bank or something like that, I don't relish it, but I can cope with it all right, to be honest. And I think I always used to wonder why that was, but I think now that I've been opening up on here actually a lot more, I think it's broadened my thinking a bit, and I think it seems pretty clear to me now that it falls into place with all the other stuff, and that is that when it's somebody I know and that I like, that I care about, or that I work with, or whatever, I'm worried about. It's that thing again, how I come across, how I'm going to look, how I'm going to sound. It doesn't really matter if someone in a call centre, no disrespect to them at all, from a bank or whatever, from the gas company, who I'm never ever going to speak to again. It doesn't really matter actually to me if I sound a bit weird to them, and hopefully I don't, but it doesn't really matter. But if it's like my dad, or one of the family, or one of my mates who's just phoning up for a chat, I'm rubbish at small talk and stuff like that, then I think the fear embedded in me is that I'm going to sound nervous, or I'm going to sound stupid or whatever. And not only do I feel embarrassed by that, but also, again, going back to what I was saying just now, what are they going to make of that? Are they then going to be thinking, oh, what have I done to make Graham feel like that? So I think that kind of could explain why that is. And the other thing, so this has turned into a bit of a recap, because this is doing this in a slightly different format. I wanted to kind of spend this session just kind of going back over the things that I've discussed so far in this series, and then next week I'll move on. I hope that's okay. But the one other thing that I spoke about, just another example, another environment that I've noticed the sort of social phobia really express itself, with me, and that is when I'm. It's just not an example. I mean, this can be in several different areas, but a good example that it's easy for me to explain is, like, say for example, when I'm on a bus or a train. More buses for some reason, I don't know why, but let's say I'm on my way home from somewhere, and I'm sat on the bus, and I'm by a window. Sorry, there was a funny noise down there. By a window seat on the bus, for example, and it's all okay, it's all good. 3 stops until I get to where I need to get off the bus in order to get home. And then let's say somebody gets on the bus and sits next to me, then immediately my heart starts going, and it's not because I'm embarrassed about sitting there, but all I'm now thinking, my brain's fast forward to 3 stops time. I've got to get off the bus. What if that person's still there? I'm going to have to disturb them and say, excuse me, could you stand up please while I go and so I can get off the bus. Happens millions of times every day on every bus, I'm sure, but for me it's like, oh my god, what if they don't want to, or what if they've had a really hard day, what if they they've been waiting to sit down for hours, you know, finally have an hour, or what if they're going to think, well, why didn't I say that before they actually sat down? Why, as I was approaching me, why didn't I say, do you want to sit by the window because I'm going to be getting off in 3 stops? But now, hang on, that might not work, because what if they're getting off in 2 stops? And again, it's just going sort of faster than I can keep up with in my head. Now, 2 things. Firstly, this fear, this anxiety in this situation doesn't just start when that person sits down. It starts at the very beginning of my journey, and a lot of my journeys on bus are quite long ones, strangely. But and so that's quite a long time of just thinking all the time. Every time I get to a bus stop, looking out, is someone going to come on? And just and thinking, and just, oh, let's work out, should I maybe have sat over there? So I don't just worry about it when it happens, I'm worrying about it before it happens. And what has been known to happen with me sometimes, let's say we're now approaching my bus stop, my house is just over there or something, this person's sat there, and God forbid they've got like a load of shopping or something, so even more reason why I don't want them to move, or don't want to ask them to move. What if my voice goes really high pitched and I look really silly? Again, the common theme there, I guess. So it has been the case before where I've stayed on a bus for an extra 5 or 10 minutes until the person has got off, which of course has then resulted in me either having to wait an hour for another train or having to walk an hour. But that would be something I would actually prefer to do. I'd see that as a viable option, rather than disturb that person and make myself look what I think is stupid or whatever. So that's just a bunch of things that I've lived with for 30 odd years, more than that, 35 years, I guess. And as I say, it's not all doom and gloom. Things are better for me now than they used to be. And as I said before, I've also had some, you know, I've been so fortunate in so many ways. So this isn't, you know, it's just something that I've lived with, you know, and I know most of us in this community have lived with real difficulties. It doesn't mean that has to define us entirely, you know, and it feels like it at the heat of the moment. It feels that it's everything all consuming, and it kind of is in a way, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, or it has to be, or even at the time, you know, you can sort of, I think there is a certain ability to put things in a certain amount of perspective if you actually look at, you know, how your day pans out, and how much of the time you actually spend in these situations. It takes a lot of thought and a lot of kind of analysis, but it's, you know, there are ways through it, you know, and I never ever thought that I would be in a situation like I am today, where you know, if I go to work tomorrow, for example, yeah, I'll be a bit nervous. I'm just a bit of a nervous person, you know. So I'll be a bit sort of nervy when I go into work, but it won't be that over. You know, I won't be kind of in a real state of panic tonight going to bed because of tomorrow, which is how I was every night for years and years and years. You know, so I'm so thankful that things have improved a lot for me, but it's still there, still, you know, this kind of ongoing thing. It always will be, I guess, but, you know, for me that's kind of okay as well, you know, because I know what I've sort of fought my way through, I suppose, what I've been through, and I'm still here, and so, you know, yeah, I've always got to keep an eye on it all, you know, and also I suppose it's a case of knowing, you know, when these bad times, when these horrible moments, you know, manifest themselves, and I'll be there on that bus again, and or in a situation, and it'll happen, you know, I've no doubt. and for that split second I'll probably think it's the end of the world and I'm the strangest person that anyone's ever met or seen, and I'm going to feel really guilty for how I'm making them feel. But if I can try and sort of convince myself, or just try and tell myself enough times at that time, look, this will pass, you know, because it has done so many times. That's the thing, you know, the older you get, and you've been living with anxiety for the longer you live with it, as hard as that is, you know, and as kind of it can bring you down, it also, I guess, can also make you realise that actually I've got through it so many times actually, so that's quite a cool thing, I guess. Anyway, look, I'm going to leave you guys to it now. Thanks a lot for listening to me. I'm sorry for those who have seen the previous ones and have just heard me tonight just kind of recap on everything again. Must be getting bored of some of my stories now. I'll move on next week to the next part of my sort of social phobia story, which will be a little bit more, not so much the kind of physical side of it, but perhaps more the emotional kind of distress and difficulties that the physical problems would cause me when I'm not in those situations. I'm not in the heat of the moment, when I'm at home the day before, the night before I'm going to, and then actually how it impacts on everything else as well, even when I'm not in that situation. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Have a lovely weekend. And please, as I say, do comment and stuff, because I'll read every single one and reply as well. And I will be back next Friday. Well, I'll be back Monday for the Men Do Mondays thing without other Graham. Although that won't be a visual live thing for me, but I'll be posting on the page. And I'll speak to you guys next Friday. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Cheers. Bye.